Former acting DHS Secretary Chad Wolf is here to shed some light on that issue. Mr. Secretary, it was already a national security issue to just leave that equipment there for the Taliban to have. But why wouldn't we, knowing the intelligence that we had about Russia potentially invading Ukraine, arm the Ukrainian people with that material?
Well, Lawrence, I think that's really the question, right? So what we saw in August was about $83 billion worth of equipment left in Afghanistan for the Taliban. And at the same time, in July of last year, we heard Vladimir Putin talking about his plans for Ukraine. So if you're the Biden administration or the National Security Council, you're putting two to two together. You should be. And you should say, hey, some of this equipment that we no longer need, let's start moving that to Ukraine where they can use it and they would use it. But I think what this, again, signals is the rash, or I should say the hasty withdrawal from Afghanistan that we saw. It wasn't planned. It wasn't coordinated. And in effect, we had to leave all of that equipment instead of giving it to our allies and others around the world that we knew could benefit from it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Obviously, you know that the Biden administration excuses. They say that back when you were with the Trump administration, you guys were responsible for that because of the negotiation y'all did with the Taliban. What would you say to that?
Yeah. Well, I think that's been debunked time and time again over the last 6 or 7 months. Again, President Trump had a totally different not only approach, but strategy in place, and certain conditions were going to have to be met in Afghanistan before any type of withdrawal of U.S. troops completely. Bagram Air Force Base probably would not have been given up, and the list goes on. And I think the American people see the way in which we withdrew from Afghanistan was horrific. It was a mistake, and unfortunately, 13 service members lost their lives because of that.
Yeah, and the majority of Americans said under the past administration that they believe that that President Trump would not have gone along with that. I want to get your reaction to another poll right here because I found it very interesting here. It showed that the majority of Americans would fight back and arm themselves, stay and fight if, America was invaded like the Ukrainian people. But when you break it down by party, this got me. 68% of the GOP said they would stay and fight, but only 40% of Democrats said they would fight. Are you surprised by that, Mr. Secretary?
Well, I am. I'm not surprised by that first number. I think the vast majority of Americans would stay and fight. But when you break it down along party lines, I agree with you that a majority of Democrats would not stay and fight. And I think what this tells you is they don't believe America is worth defending at the end of the day. These are individuals, many of them, that condemn America, believe it was conceived in sin. They don't fight for our history. They don't want to defend our heritage. They don't want to defend our workers. And they don't want to defend our borders at the end of the day. So unfortunately, when you think about it that way, I guess the poll is not that surprising, but it should be. It should wake up a lot of folks.
We're in deep trouble if that's the case. That amongst party lines, that only 40% of Democrats would stay and fight. I think that is embarrassing. Thanks so much, Secretary, for joining us tonight.